So when I was 16 years old, my Aunt Ronnie passed away. I didn't know much about Ronnie. We didn't really visit on the holidays. I didn't talk to her a lot. I never really spent any time with her whatsoever. But she died fairly young, I think 45-ish. Can't really remember, I was 16, I'm 34 now. But at that time, my mom's mom, my grandma, she was unable to get out of bed and go to the funeral. And there was nobody to stay with her and stay by her side during this time. So my mother decided to be that person to stay with Grandma. Since my mom wasn't able to go to the funeral, my mom asked me if I would be willing to go to the funeral for her, which I thought was quite peculiar because how can you go to an event for someone else unless you're documenting it with video and photo? But I wasn't going to do that, and that wasn't ever the plan. But nevertheless, I told my mother yes, that I would definitely go to the funeral for her. 16 years old, I'm at this funeral, and I never went in to actually see Ronnie, but I stayed in the lobby, just kind of sitting there, hanging out, and I was looking at this wall. I didn't have much else to do. There weren't cell phones at that time, and I was staring at the brick wall. And I remember thinking about these bricks, just how each brick was so unique and individual, yet it held up this one wall. Like all these bricks came together to create one wall. However, each individual brick had its own identity, its own purpose. I don't even know why that's important to the story, and against the brick wall was an organ, and a gentleman came up to play the organ. And I remember listening to it, and it was so beautiful. And he's playing the melody on the organ against the wall of bricks, and I was just hearing this music and seeing these bricks and thinking to myself, this is special for some reason. And as I'm sitting there listening to him play on the piano, and I'm looking at these bricks, and I'm just kind of in this deep thought about how each brick is unique and each brick makes up this one wall. The light's breaking through the window, and it's just shining on everybody like that, and it was super powerful. All of Ronnie's family and friends who had come to pay their respects, they were all standing in their little groups, and they were all just kind of having their conversations with each other, and they were whispering, and the music's going, and I'm sitting there, and I'm somewhere like, let's say here, looking out at it all, and I'm just kind of taking it all in. The piano is making such beautiful melody, the bricks, each individual brick holding up this one unique wall, this warm light. It was probably noon. This light is just bursting through the windows, and these people are in their little groups, and the whispering of their conversations. And I remember it to just be so powerful, between the music, the bricks, the whispering, the light, just that whispering, it just kept growing intense, so powerful, and it was just like, it started going like that, like fluttering. The best way to describe it is if you can imagine thousands of birds are on the ground, and all of a sudden they take off like that, and all of a sudden I'm immersed in this light, not like that light that was bursting through the windows, and not like this light that's shining on my head right now, and not like the sunlight, unlike any light I've ever experienced in my life. I felt as if I had broken through an event horizon, and I was now in a new dimension, and it was just the brightest, warmest, most comforting light I've ever felt in my entire life, and I'll never forget it. And the whispering stayed, and it was, and I'm gone, out of body. I'm like out of body experience at this point, and I'm in this. All I could think was I'm in heaven. But this whispering, it was just this language that I understood. It told me to tell my mother that Ronnie was there, that Ronnie was in heaven. That's what it said. Not in English, not in Spanish, not in French. It was craziness, like wild tongues. And it told me to tell my mother that Ronnie was there. And all of this happened, like the piano, the bricks, the whispering, the light, and then me lifting out of my body and coming back down within just a matter of a couple seconds. It was just, I mean, the piano and the bricks and everything was a few minutes, kind of warming it up. And then by the time I even knew the whispering was happening, whew, I was gone. I was gone. I was in this healing white. I was in the presence of God. That's all I knew it to be. That's it. I cannot. There was nothing. I wasn't on drugs. I wasn't smoking any weed. I wasn't taking mushrooms. I wasn't a drug addict. I wasn't doing that. I was sober. It was like noon. I'd woken up, got ready, and went to the funeral. I mean, that's the extent of that. But when I came back down after being in that white light, when I came back down, it was as if I had fallen back into the shell that is me. Like I had fallen back into this vehicle, this meat vehicle. And I felt euphoric. I felt pure. I felt clean. I felt cleansed. I felt healed. I felt so good. And I wish I would have broken out a dictionary just now just to find more words and synonyms for euphoric. It was unbelievable. And I sat there, and my sister-in-law was sitting next to me, and I don't remember this, but she, knowing the story, she says that she looked over at me and asked me if I was okay. I don't know what I said. You'd have to talk to her. But I felt so good. And I remember just sitting there and touching the chair, and like it was like I was brand new or something. And everything felt like, oh my God, like if you can imagine that you stumbled upon a brand new planet for the first time in your life, and you had no idea what bad meant. And I was walking around, and I was literally like a psycho. I was touching things and feeling things, and it was insane. I was like, and I remember feeling like, oh, I feel so good. I remember going into the bathroom, and I remember brushing by this plaque in the funeral home, and I can't remember what it said. I think it was a Bible verse. I think it had something to do with Jesus, but I remember touching it and thinking, oh, so sweet, so sweet. And that the rest of that day, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody what happened. I didn't go and say, hey everybody, I freaked out just now. I spent the rest of the day in this euphoric feeling by myself. After the funeral had finished, all the family was welcome to go to a little luncheon, like a little brunch thing, and I just couldn't shake this just amazing feeling. I didn't want to shake that feeling. I can't remember after the brunch. The rest of the day went by. I don't know what I did. 16 years old, I probably played video games. But the very next morning, I woke up, and I remember opening the door and seeing my mom just sitting there on the couch, and that light was just coming through. There's just this light coming through, and it's just illuminating her. And I walked up to her, and I sat right next to her, and she was just kind of waiting for me. And I told her, I said, Mom, this is what happened to me yesterday at the funeral. I said, you asked me to go to the funeral for you, and this is what happened. I told her this. I told her the bricks. I told her the piano. I told her how everybody was in their little groups, and they were whispering, and I told her how I got lifted into some kind of spirit. And then I told her that spirit told me to tell her specifically that Ronnie was in heaven. And she starts crying, tears of joy. She confessed to me that while she was with her mother, and because she was unable to attend the funeral, that she prayed that God would just let her know that her sister was okay, and that her sister had made it. My mom was concerned with her sister's salvation. And days, weeks, months, my life went on. 16 years old, not just being a kid. I eventually started smoking some weed and partying and doing all kinds of dumb stuff, and life just kind of went on. But my prayer is that all my experiences will serve as a way of opening your mind and your heart to get you closer to God. We're definitely more than just animals by chance on a planet. There's a purpose for us. There's a purpose for you, and I love you. And thank you for checking out the Book of Wolf today. God bless.